Hello, so today we're going to look at writing introductions. For this class, you'll just need a pen and you'll need this document that I have on the screen right now. So you need to make sure that you have this document printed out in front of you and we're going to work through it together. So if your teacher has not printed it out for you yet, please ask them to do so. Pause the video until everyone has their document. And again, just a pen and we're going to work through this together. Okay, so just to let you know, introductions and conclusions are probably the most important aspect of your essay. Your introduction grabs your audience, makes them want to read the rest of that essay. You've got to keep in mind that when you are in a lecture or at university, or if you are just at GAC, your teacher could be reading 10, 15, 25 different essays. And so you've got to try and keep that teacher interested so they keep focused and give you a positive mark. So this is something, just a hot tip to make sure you think about, and that's both in GAC, but also when you think of IELTS, or if you do TOEFL, if you do ACT, and then especially when you get to university. So that's why we're going to spend a class looking at introduction writing. So, and a great introduction is very similar to the opening of a scene of a movie. So when you list a movie that you've seen that gave you the reason and why the reason the movie was so memorable. So we've got two here. So the movie title and why it was memorable, and the movie title and why it was memorable. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to complete that. If you need some more time, please press pause on the video and then you can proceed again when everyone is finished. So I need the movie and why it was interesting. For instance, one of my favourite movies is American History X. At the very beginning of this movie, the character played by Edward Norton is screaming at an African-American person. He's screaming, "Put your head on the curb, put your head on the curb." And then he raises his foot and smashes it down on this poor man's head so he dies. It's quite dramatic and it's always been very memorable, and it's given me a hint about what the movie's about. So please proceed now. Movie title and why, a movie title and why it was memorable. Okay, if you haven't finished, please pause and finish. When you have finished, I'd like you to turn to the person next to you, sitting next to you. So I think again that would be Carl that sits next to Apple. You'll be talking to each other, and then someone, whoever is next to you, will be speaking to each other. I want you to compare which movies you chose and why you chose, and see if you agree or disagree, or you think the other person's idea is better. Have a talk about what made that movie, that title or introduction of the movie, so interesting. I'd like to give you 2 minutes to complete this. Okay, so now that you've talked about your movie and why that introduction of that movie was so interesting, we're going to carry on looking at introductions. So please turn to your next page and we're going to go through these together. So, writing introductions, an introduction or an introductory paragraph is the first paragraph in any multi-paragraph essay. You will note that I'm giving you, requiring you to do introductions in your descriptions, in your summaries, and that's for us to continue to develop this very, very important skill. An introduction is very similar to when you do your presentation as well. You want to make your presentation introduction really interesting and grab your audience. Successful introductions engage the reader and increase interest in the topic. So you're looking at getting them reading and interested. Imagine that you would like to sell this. And in order to sell it, you need someone to be interested in it, okay? So even if you're not interested in the topic, which I hope that you are, you need to find a way to make it interesting to the reader. The main parts of the introduction are the lead, the bridge, and the thesis statement. I know we've done a lot of work on thesis statement, or rather the claim, so hopefully we're confident and comfortable with that. The lead should be about 3 to 5 sentences. This is depending on how long your essay is. So for you, the lead might be 1 to 2 sentences for quite a short 1,000 word essay. The bridge is just like a normal bridge. It goes from the lead into the thesis or the main claim of your essay. So it fills that gap. And the thesis statement is generally the last sentence of your introduction. So the thesis statements that we have actually worked on for your essay all those months ago, this is when you can actually use them, okay? So it goes into the last part of your introduction paragraph. And then it makes your entire paragraph about 5 to 8 sentences, but again, it's usually about maybe 10% of your whole essay, depending on how many words your essay is. So I want you to go through, now that we've read these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, can you answer these questions for me? What 3 things are in an introduction in order? How long is your introductory paragraph? Where does the bridge go? Where does the thesis go? And what is a lead? I'm going to give you 2 minutes to answer those questions and then we'll go through the answers. So what 3 main things are in an introduction? First of all, you've got the lead. You think of the lead, you think of the leader, and the leader is the one that begins the march. Then we've got the bridge, which brings those 2 things together. Finally, the thesis statement or the claim. So you're kind of working up to the thesis statement. You're building a foundation for them to understand what your essay is going to be about. How long is the introductory paragraph? So they said about 5 to 8 sentences. That would be probably for an essay 1,500 to 2,000 words. So for yours, it would be a little bit shorter, but we'll talk about that. Where does the bridge go? As you know, that goes right in the middle. The thesis goes right at the end, and the lead actually grabs the audience and gives some introduction or some background information about what we're going to be talking about. Just want to re-go over, I know that we've been over thesis statement, but I just want to go over it again. Some of you in your planning your plan did not write me a thesis statement. Some of you wrote me an introduction. Some of you wrote me 1 sentence. So I just want to go over some more details. So it's really about the opinion you take on the essay. However, you cannot use first person. You need to make your opinion appear using third person. A good thesis statement is specific, so avoid vague words. So playing basketball is great. A better example would be playing basketball will improve athletic skills. A good thesis statement is not a title. It is not the title of your essay. It is not an announcement of the subject. And this person's done both of these are incorrect because they've used first person, but we're at level 2, so we're using academic essays and we're not using I. It cannot be a question either because it is about your opinion. If you're using your opinion, you're not going to be asking a question. And a good thesis statement, a good thesis statement is not a statement about absolute fact. Okay, so here are some things that you don't use either in your thesis and you don't use in your essay at all. In my opinion, my paper is going to be, I think that. Also, don't write the following essay will. Tell me what you're going to talk about, but you don't need to tell me what you're going to tell me to talk about. You won't be listing facts and you won't be asking questions. So be specific, make a claim that you can actually support, and make a claim that will actually make the strongest argument. It doesn't necessarily mean the one that you agree with. I'm not going to do that bit. And again, this is just to get a bit of an overview of thesis statements. Again, go back to the one that we actually wrote all those months ago. I will work on those when you hand in your detailed plan, just to make sure that's absolutely perfect. Just to remember, thesis statement comes at the end, and it's probably the most important aspect of your introduction. Building bridges. So a bridge is 1 or 2 sentences that connect your lead with your thesis. A bridge will contain limiting information. So, for instance, if you're going to write your essay on whether animal testing is good or bad, you're going to have a bridge that animals are sentient beings, have feelings. It's really big talking about that, but ours is about testing. Therefore, in my bridge, it is essential that it be considered whether animal testing is humane or not. So now I've limited it. I've taken it from animal testing and limited to that area. You might be talking about whether we should have females and males in school. Limiting it would be using example of China. So you've taken a big topic and shrunk it a little bit. So limiting information. That ties the purpose of your essay. For example, it might state the names of people you are comparing, the issue you're researching, or the topic you will pursue. Although a bridge limits information from your lead, it doesn't limit it as much as your single sentence thesis, okay? So we're kind of going from big to medium to small. So you think of the lead as big, umbrella, and then a little bit smaller for your bridge, and then your thesis is very specific. So it's a connecting from one place to another. So I want you to read the following example of the introduction and underline the thesis twice and circle the bridge. Remember that the bridge is where you bring up the topic of your paper, but nothing specific. So circle the bridge and underline the thesis statement twice of this for me. I'll give you 1 minute to complete that. So you should have underlined for your thesis statement would be, after consideration, I would invite Oprah, my grandma, and President Lincoln. You can clearly tell this is written by an American. And for your bridge, probably these 2 areas here, because it limits it down a little bit. So there may be many fascinating people to spend dinner with. So it's gone down a little bit, and then it's gone even smaller and talked about 3 people, dead or alive. And then finally, we've got our thesis statement or our point. We're going to talk about funnel leads. So the funnel lead is probably the most traditional way in which to write your lead. So you start big and you go small. So broad to specific approach. So if you think about an upside down triangle. So it eases the reader into the topic by providing a bit of background. For instance, this person, their essay prompt, so the question for their essay is the school district is trying to figure out what problems affect teenagers' success in school the most. Teenagers are faced with decisions every day that impact their success. In an essay, to be read by parents and staff of the school, write an essay that shows what affects student performance the most. And here is an example. The life of a teenager in modern America is not always pleasant. He or she is faced with a multiple of conflicts and problems, many of which seem almost impossible to overcome. Most of these problems center around school, which is not surprising considering that the teenager devotes an average of 8 hours a day to school and school-related activities. Since school is not an option, teenagers need to be more aware. Primary problems created by school are the intense pressure for good grades and even more intense pressure of peers. So I want you to list down for the lead, don't worry about the bridge, but for the lead, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 topics that they talk about. So the first one is teenager in America. So I'd say number 1 is a teenager in America. I want you to have a look at 2, 3, and 4 and think about what the other topics are before the bridge, until the bridge. So I would say number 2 would be that the problems are mostly in school. Number 3, especially that we have to spend 8 hours a day. And 4, that as school isn't an option, we need to sort out what the problems are. So we need to know what the problems are. We need to circle 5 effective words or influencing words in this paragraph. I want you to underline the thesis statement twice, and I want you to put a box around the sentences that you think are a lead. So effective words are probably problems and the need to overcome these problems. So those would be 2. The fact that it's to do with the school would be 3. And pressure for good grades and pressure of peers would be number 4. So 4 and 5. So the thesis statement is primary problems created by school are the intense pressure for good grades and even more intense pressure of peers. So this is what our essay is really going to be proving. So this person is going to give evidence to prove this in various paragraphs. And the lead would be all of this. Okay, so hopefully you got that correct. So we're going to work on writing a funnel lead. So you're going to be doing this for your essay when you do your first draft. So please pay attention. If you would like to send me your examples, that's fine. Alternatively, if you'd like to start working on your own after this class and like to send me those introductions, I'd be more than happy to give you straight feedback. So here is the example essay prompt. The school board is considering implementing or making a longer school day. Some teachers are against it because it will affect sports practice. Please note, imagine that you're living in America where they start school at probably 8 a.m., 8:30 and finish usually around 3:30, 4 o'clock. Then usually in America, but also in Australia, we have sport after that. So I used to go and I'd play netball and then I'd go to piano practice. My brother would go and play hockey and go and do more outdoor activities. So pretend that you're not in China for this, because I can't imagine they can make your school day any longer. It's already really long. So other teachers are for it because students need to be better prepared for higher education after high school. And a longer day means more time to learn for the students. In an essay to be read by the school board, write why the school day should or should not be longer. Okay, so again, we're going to do very similar to what they've done up here. Now they've started quite big. So a big comment, they talked about the life of a teenager in modern America is not always pleasant. So it's a really, really big statement, and then gone short, smaller and smaller and smaller until they got to the bridge and the thesis. So you're going to be writing 1, 2, 3 sentences for your lead, move into your bridge, which will connect your thesis statement, and then write your thesis statement. Your thesis statement may be, for instance, the education system should understand that students need more or need less time to study. Okay, so you decide whether the school in America, whether they should be studying for 12 hours a day or whether they should stay at 6 or 8 hours a day. So starting big, moving down to number 2, 3, 4, and 5. Here is an example of the beginning. Students go to school 5 days a week. They attend at least 6 classes every day. They are expected to know, da, 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 da. This is just an example, do not copy it, okay? So we just start with something big, give a little bit context, and then we're gonna move through it. So what I'm going to do is I'd like you to complete this. I then would like you to review it, hand it to your classmate. I want your classmate to have a look and say whether they think it's a good good introduction or a bad introduction, and how you might improve. Once you've looked at it, made any changes you think you should, please take a photo of it and send that to me. So we're going to be using a funnel lead for our introductions for this 008 essay. So I said, so we start really, really big and then move our way small until we have our correct thesis statement. So your work for today is number 1, complete this activity, take a photo and send it through to me on WeChat. Number 2, I would like you to continue working on your detailed plan to get that through to me. And then we can start looking at our introduction thereafter. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me on WeChat. Other than that, I will see you next class.